Hello friends, I welcome you in the course on Institutional Management and Administration. In this session friends, we are going to talk on very important issue of feedback, which is the backbone of any performance enhancement process of the institution. As the name suggests, feedback means feeding back. Feeding back the information relating to how you performed, why you performed in this fashion, and what were the gaps, what action needs to be taken, and accordingly helping the institution design the right path for its growth and development. In the presentation today, we shall be talking about feedback, its concept and purpose, what exactly is effective feedback, principles for effective feedback practice, SBI model of feedback, giving effective feedback do's and don'ts, receiving feedback, eliciting feedback do's and don'ts, and finally the feedback formats. I am sure after going through the presentation, you shall be able to give, receive, and elicit feedback, the important component of any institutional enhancement process. Let's first understand what exactly is feedback. Feedback is an information about performance or behavior that leads to action to affirm or develop that performance or behavior. The term is often used to describe all kinds of comments made after the fact or event, including advice, praise, and evaluation. Basically, it is an information about how we are doing in our efforts to reach a goal. Feedback is a process in which the impact or output of an action is returned to modify the next action that is fed back. It is a dialogue between people which refers back how another person sees someone else's behavior or performance. Feedback is a very important part of any teaching learning process in an institution. It is integral to teaching learning process. It is basically an information given to the learner by the teacher or to the teacher about the learner's performance relative to learning goals. Effective feedback helps students to develop their understanding and improve their performance in relation to the standards of the institution. Feedback is an ongoing process. Let's understand the purpose of feedback. Feedback enables the receiver to recognize what he or she has done well so that he can continue doing it. It also enables the receiver to understand where she needs to develop and change. So, two basic purposes. First, if the performance is good, let's continue with it. If the performance is not up to the mark, let's change it and make the performance as per the standards. What exactly is effective feedback? For students to benefit from feedback, the student must know and must possess a concept of goals or standards or a reference level being aimed for. Then he can compare the actual or current level of his performance with the goals or the standards set in the institute. And based on the goals and standards and comparison with it, he can engage in appropriate action which leads to some closure of the gap. Means first you are deciding your actual performance, then comparing it with the standards set in the institution. If there is a gap, then you are trying to take corrective actions to fulfill the gap. So this is the basic purpose of effective feedback. Principles for effective feedback practice in an institution are: feedback facilitates the development of self-assessment in learning. It helps you to reflect back and see what you have done right, what you have done wrong. It encourages teachers and peer dialogue around learning. It helps clarify what good performance is in terms of goals, criteria, and expected standards. It also provides opportunities to close the gap between the current and the desired levels of performance. It helps in delivering high quality information to students about their learning. It also encourages positive motivational beliefs and self-esteem. It provides information to teachers that can be used to help shape the teaching which they are to take so that learning should take place. There is a model for the implementation of effective feedback. This model is called Situation Behavior Impact Model or SBI model. In this, there are three important elements. First is situation, second is behavior, and third is impact. Situation means capturing the situation or when it has happened. Example, in the meeting with you yesterday, in the office this morning when we were discussing X, or in the meeting with the requester on Friday, we are talking of the situation in this case. Then the behavior, how you performed or how the other person informed. Describe the behavior of an individual, how it has happened. Example, you interrupted, you did not complete the assignment on time, or you arrived late for work. This is the behavior of an individual. Then the third part of the model is impact. In this, we are trying to assess the impact of the behavior of the individual or the institution or the co-workers on the organization as a whole. Here, we are describing the impact on you, on co-workers, on an engagement program, or on the institution as a whole. Example may be, because you kept interrupting your team members in the meeting, they all shut down and we did not have a chance to discuss the ideas of others. So, in this three-based model or three-legged model, importance is of situation, behavior, and then finally the impact of the situation and the behavior on the growth and development of the institution. While understanding the feedback system, one should be able to understand the situation in which it has happened, the behavior it has impacted on the feedback system for the growth and development, which must be taken care of. How to give effective feedback? Let's understand some of the do's. Effective feedback enables the receiver to walk away understanding exactly what he or she did and the impact that it had on the other person or the situation. The important part of the effective feedback is it should be timely, that it should be given as close to the event as possible, taking into account the person's readiness for the same. It should be selective, addressing one or two key issues rather than too many at a once. If we are addressing too many, it will not be leading to giving the right feedback to the person, and accordingly the person will not be able to decide which is right, which is wrong, based on the feedback on many issues simultaneously taken care of. Then feedback should be balanced, good and bad part of the feedback should be given simultaneously. Suggestions should be there, not prescriptions. Then it should be descriptive but non-judgmental, based on behavior, not personality. Then it should be specific or focused in order to focus developmental feedback and directed towards the behavior that can be changed. And finally, it should be remembered the SBI model, which helps us in deciding how to give the right feedback. Some of the don'ts in giving the feedback. These don'ts are: don't assume any situation, don't assume any behavior, don't assume the impact. Don't be vague, don't use accusations, don't judge the person, don't pass along vague feedback from others, don't give advice unless asked for, don't psychoanalyze the personality of the individual, don't qualify your feedback by backing out. Don't use examples from your own experiences. These examples should be based on the experience of the individual to whom feedback is being given. Don't generalize with the words like, always, or never, because these are not going to give the right perspective to the individual, because no situation is always and no situation is never. Don't label your feedback in advance. Don't sandwich your feedback with the words like but and but not. So these are some of the don'ts which must be taken care of while giving the effective feedback. Then how to receive the feedback? If you are receiving the feedback, it's very important that you should listen attentively. You should repeat only what you have heard so that you are sure what the other person has conveyed you. Ask for specifics, including what you are doing well. Say thank you as a matter of gesture. Ask if you can check back if need be, if the information you feel required is something more what you are unable to grasp presently. So these are some of the fundamentals which must be taken care of while receiving the feedback. Then there are some of the common reasons for not eliciting feedback rightly. These can be We don't know how, we don't know who, we don't know when, we don't believe that we need to ask. We fear that the somebody will answer in a different direction. It may be my criticism. We fear the person we are asking. We are scared of the person, he may be high up, or due to his behavior, due to which we are not eliciting feedback from him. We fear the consequences of asking. We are trying to understand that if the person will say something, give the feedback in that direction, which may be harmful for me, and we are bothered about the consequences of that feedback. So, these are some of the reasons due to which we are unable to elicit feedback. Then, how to elicit feedback? These are some do's. Set the stage for getting the feedback. Ask permission to ask whether I can take your feedback. Sir, whether you have time to give me feedback, whether you can spare some time. So, ask permission to ask for the feedback. Respect even those who do not wish to provide feedback. Explain your purpose, which is very important. Unless you tell the purpose for eliciting feedback, the person will not be able to give the feedback which you are expecting. Explain how you would like to receive feedback based on your situation, behavior, and impact model. Ask open-ended questions. These should be scripted and neutral. Some of the don'ts for eliciting feedback. Don't surprise people by immediately asking for eliciting feedback. Don't create a situation where the feedback provider feels backed into a corner. Don't ask threatening questions. Don't defend, explain, or rationalize your position when the other person is eliciting your feedback. Don't retaliate and don't burn bridges. These are some of the don'ts for eliciting feedback. Now, let's understand the feedback formats in which the feedback is given in an educational institution. The feedback can be in the form of written or verbal information for an individual. These can be in the form of an assignment on which the teacher or the feedback provider has given his comments. Then, verbal or written general feedback to a group on most common errors, successes on an exam paper, which we generally do as a teacher. Then, checklists pro forma. Example can be headings of assessment criteria with comments below of the provider. Then, assessment criteria grid showing where the student is placed against each criteria. There can be set criteria where against each the student is performing, and you are trying to give him where you are placed in comparison to others. Then, feedback can be in the form of model answers to the questions asked in the exam. It can be computerized in the form of multiple choice questions also. Then, feedback can be in the form of off-the-cuff comments from others, in the form of you are really good at, you are really bad at. So, these are some of the formats in which the feedback is given in an educational institution. Summarizing, feedback is an integral and one of the most important elements of the communication system prevailing in an institution. It provides an information about how an institution is making efforts to reach its preset goals. It helps institutional managers to understand how to give, receive, and elicit effective feedback. Then, right feedback helps an institution to route its path to success. I hope you must have understood the basics of feedback, how to give feedback, how to receive feedback, and how to elicit feedback. I also hope you must have understood SBI model of feedback. Based on the information I have discussed in this presentation, I am sure that you should be able to implement right feedback system in your organization. Thank you very much.